Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. You're getting 3 this week. Wow, we are hanging out. It's Gemini season. Let's talk, let's learn, let's socialize. Today, I'm doing an impromptu episode. I didn't have this scheduled. I didn't plan on this. I mean, I don't really plan on a lot of my episodes. They just fly out. But there is something that I get asked a handful of times every single week that it's time to address. Whole sign versus Placidus. We need to talk about the whole sign house system and the Placidus house system because it's a hot topic for those of you who invest in the universe package mentorship sessions with me. It is the first thing we go over in great detail. We do a whole exercise to dive into the understanding and the conceptualization of whole sign versus Placidus. So get your notebook, listen closely. We are going to debunk all of the myths going around out there about whole sign versus Placidus. What's right? What's wrong? Why do they use this? Why do you use that? We're going to cover it really quickly. Astrology-lounge.com to check out more ways to work with me, book a private session of your own, check out the Universe Mentorship Package. I believe we have 2 spots that just opened up. Check out the Moon playlist, many resources, including show merchandise, all there for you on the website, astrology-lounge.com. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to say about the housing systems is that 2 languages can speak the same truth. So off the bat, there is no right, there is no wrong house system to use. Just like there's Vedic astrology, sidereal astrology, Western astrology, Indian astrology. There's so many different modalities and ways to utilize it. All of them are interesting. My personal belief around it is explore it. Check out your birth chart and Vedic astrology. Listen to astrologers who teach from that lens and see if you like it. This is the beauty of astrology as a belief system. I guess it could be categorized as that, is you have free will. You get to, unlike, following an organized religion where there is a scripture that you follow and rules, which is beautiful. I'm not knocking that. I never do. This is more the individual, like what resonates with you, what makes sense to you. Find that, stick with it, but continuously be mutable, open-minded with it. Check out other astrology modalities and see what you think. I know when I look at my chart in sidereal, and let me ask you, you guys know me well since you listen to the show, my sidereal chart would make me a Scorpio sun, Libra moon, Aries rising. Scorpio, Libra, Aries. I don't give off Aries. I don't think, at least in my appearance. And the Scorpio resonates because I've got a Scorpio moon, Scorpio Venus, 8th house stellium. So yeah. And then my sun is in the 7th house of Libra. So maybe, but see, you can stretch all these things. I think this is why a lot of men, and it breaks my heart, they don't resonate with astrology. I feel very lucky that my male partner absolutely loves it and utilizes it for hiring, for firing, for making decisions in life. This is one thing I fell in love with him for, was his curiosity and thirst for learning and his ability to say, I don't really agree with that. And then his ability to say, well, let me learn more. I love that. But men are very linear. It's their superpower as well as their curse, if you will. Yes or no, black or white. And I think a lot of people, not just men, a lot of people don't like astrology because they think it puts them into a box, that it becomes a tool for judging people. And I laugh because, yeah, it is. It absolutely. You're such a Libra. Or what's the best one? Oh, you don't believe in astrology? Were you born in late December or most of January? It's all in good fun. Like, let's get back to the era where we can joke around with each other and roast each other. But to that point, 2 languages can speak the same truth. I use this when I talk about religion and astrology. I think they're both amazing. I think they can both kind of lead you into understanding yourself. It just depends on the user. Who's using it and how are you using it? Are you using it to accept and love all around you? Right? Religion can be used for that, as can astrology. It can be used to go within and find yourself as well. They're all speaking the same truth, just a different language. And that is the big picture of whole sign versus Placidus. So now let's get into the details between the two. When you open your birth chart, you'll see that there's 12 pie slices, and those are called houses. Houses in astrology represent areas of life that a planet or a luminary, the sun and moon, that their energies are likely to show up. So you have the planets Venus, Mars, Mercury. They all represent something. Mercury, the mind. Venus, love. Mars, action. What area of life do you love? Can you tell it is a value of yours? What area of life are you always taking action on and protecting and feel motivated in? What area of life can you overthink too much, or are you super intelligent and very gifted at speaking and teaching about? That is where the houses get involved, right? My Mercury is in the 8th house of Scorpio. I absolutely love talking to people about their deepest, darkest subjects. My mom frequently tells me, stop probing. Why are you asking so many deep questions? But now she's gotten to know that's just who I am. That is just my soul's blueprint. I love it. I wish I got a psychology degree. I wish I was a journalist. And then I went into like really rough areas and asked people about their pain and their trauma and got to travel for it. I guess it's never too late, huh? My Sagittarius sun sits in the 7th house. What area of life can you tell someone is a Sagittarius? Well, Sagittarius sun in house number 4, they don't travel. They don't have a passport. But if you go to their home, they've got podcasts, self-help books. They're probably writing a book. They're seeking truth through home and family and meeting. My son's in the 7th house in Sagittarius. I'm consistently seeking truth through understanding life and myself and the world around me through relationships. That's why I used to offer synastry and composite charts to understand all relationships. I'm fascinated by those things. So that is what the pie slices, the houses, mean. So let's start simple. A house system. The zodiac signs, they stay the same. Aries, Pisces, Libra, Virgo, they stay the same. The planets, Mars always rules this. Mercury always rules that. Those stay the same. What changes is how we divide the sky into the 12 houses. Same pizza, different ways of slicing it. Nobody's changing the toppings on the pizza. They're just changing the size of the slices. Okay? Are you with me? So what is whole sign? When we say whole sign, what does that mean? Here we go. Let me look at my astrology apps. I used to use CoStar, and I know that they use whole sign. I love the pattern. They use whole sign as well. And I love Astro Future. They use Placidus. Nice. So whole sign, I believe Shani Nichols on her app, I believe her team uses whole sign as well. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head, but those I know use whole sign, and they are the most popular. And so a lot of people, I think Chris Brennan uses whole sign as well. The Astrology Podcast with Chris Brennan, amazing show, by the way, use whole sign. It is the oldest surviving house system, which makes your 12 slices all look exactly the same size. Have you ever looked at one chart and there's like a super sliver skinny first house? Second house gets a little bit bigger than that, but then the third and the fourth and the fifth are huge and they take up the whole wheel. You're like, what's going on? That would be Placidus. Whole sign is a perfectly shaped and sliced pizza. So it's the oldest surviving house system. If you're a Taurus rising, then your entire first house will be Taurus. Your entire second house will be Gemini, because that's the sign that comes next. And we're currently in Gemini season, so what season comes next? Cancer season. So for a Taurus rising, the third house will be Cancer, and so on. So the ascendant degree, like are you a 5-degree Taurus rising, a 23-degree Taurus rising, that degree still matters, but it no longer determines the house cusps, the sign that sits right on the border of the pie slice. You know, a lot of people who are born between 0 and 5 degrees of a rising sign. So look at your rising sign, your ASC, ascendant, and see if it is 0 to 5 degrees, or Jackson's going to look at his chart now, or 24 to 29 degrees. So each zodiac sign is 0 to 29 degrees. So those examples I just shared with you mean you're either born super early ascendant when that sign was rising over the eastern horizon, or you were born between 24 and 29 degrees. So I always call it sliding under the closing garage door, like, no, I'm a 29-degree Scorpio ascendant. I really want to learn that sign. Phew, I just made it. So that's a critical degree. It's got a sense of urgency with it. But when people are born, like I know JL has a, shame on me, 26-degree Cancer ascendant. And so when I'm trying to show him his Placidus chart, he gets so confused, like, well, Cancer rules my 12th house, which means Leo rules my first house, because it looks to the naked eye like Leo rules his first house, simply because he's such a late degree Cancer rising. I am a 20-degree Taurus rising. And it appears like Taurus takes up the little green symbol, takes a little bit of my first house, but it's a lot of Gemini too. But it's not the ruler of my first house. I should really be doing this on a YouTube channel. We have an amazing videographer now, and he's going to start helping us shoot videos. I should have like a pointer stick and a map and just teach you guys. But I hope you're listening to this while looking at a chart so it makes more sense. So the pros of a whole sign, the charts that have each one of the 12 houses the same exact size, is it's very easy to learn. I do agree that when someone has a very popular astrology app, it's just best and easy to use whole sign because they know their audience. They read the room. If they use Placidus, it's going to get so confusing because to the naked eye, it's like, what do you mean Leo rules my second house? It looks like that little red symbol is all in the first house. This is confusing. So the pros of whole sign, it's easy to learn. It's excellent for prediction, for horoscopes. That's why when I do my horoscope episodes, I tell you, listen to that rising sign first. And it creates very clean house divisions that are super easy for the naked eye to see and understand. It has ancient roots. It is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, way of using astrology. However, ancient astrology was never used for understanding the individual as it is in modern times. Ancient astrology was utilized to predict the weather, to predict war, famish, to hunt, to grow food. It was used for nature and survival purposes. They didn't have the luxury of getting to know personalities on such a deep level. It was just survival of the fittest, and we got to hope that we can understand what this winter is going to be like, what summer is going to be like, when to plant under a full moon, when to harvest under a new moon. It was for things like that. It was never meant to be for the individual. And so, to me, if you have a reading with me, I use Placidus. However, I do ask you on the intake form which one you prefer, because when you invest so much money and time into a session with me, I never want to just throw you for a loop, because it could be like an identity crisis if you're following your birth chart on an astrology app that has only used whole sign, and then you come meet with me and I go, surprise, your sun is actually in the 5th house, not the 4th. Your Venus is actually in the 9th house, not the 8th, so you're not as gothic as you thought you were. It can be like, whoa, wait, okay, now I have to relearn a whole new chart. It's just not worth the investment to go through a midlife crisis in terms of your chart. I do understand that. So I ask you on the intake form, which one do you prefer? So the pros of it, it's easy to learn. It makes things more seamless to understand. But the cons of using whole sign is it feels less specific. I love astrology apps out there. I think they're so fun. CoStar has such cool graphics. The pattern, I love her voice, whoever that is. I've tried to find them. I can't. I love them. They all have really great things to them. But I started to find that the horoscopes I would read were very generic, and they did not apply to my life. And I think a lot of them are very relationship focused. And some of them, to be completely honest, some of them kind of scared me. It would be like, this is coming up. You're at a crossroads in your connections. And my connections were all great. And they were fine. But then it made me go, well, what do I not know with my Scorpio moon? What did I miss? What's going to happen? And I was like, this isn't empowering me as much as it's making me think, shoot, is something going to is the next shoe going to drop? So I've kind of backed away from them, to be honest, and just focused on living and then looking at the astrology. But I also started to notice that my friends with completely different birth charts were getting the same horoscope. And I was like, what is going on? This isn't making sense. So Whole Sign is catering to a large audience. Placidus is catering to you as an individual. So what is Placidus? Let's go into that funny looking word, platypus placidus. Placidus became extremely popular in modern Western astrology, which is what we talk about here in the Astrology Lounge and where we based off our readings off of. So instead of every house being exactly one sign, same size, the houses are calculated based on the Earth's tilt on its axis, or the Earth's rotation, and the amount of time it takes those rising signs to rise and set. So as a result, when you take the Earth's seasons and the Earth's tilt on its axis into account, some houses become huge, some become tiny. If you ever have a friend, or if you know someone, or maybe you're listening to this, I forget, I have a Nordic audience here. If you read someone's birth chart who was born in Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Alaska, deep in South America, sometimes Australia, not always, their birth charts are so wonky through Placidus because they have these tiny little houses that you're like, a planet can't possibly fit in that. That's not fair. It's not big enough. There's no real estate in there for Venus to sit. And then they have these massive houses that take up a whole quadrant of the chart, of the circle. And you're like, well, if we're casting a net here, of course they're going to have a stellium of their whole chart sitting in one house because it takes up half the chart. And so for those, that's always a tough one when I read people whose Placidus charts appear that way, because it's just really interesting to say, well, what if it wanted to squeeze in the second house, but it couldn't fit because of the day and the location that you were born in, right? So at higher latitudes, things get weird. But the pros to Placidus is it's extremely nuanced and specific down to you. This is why I only use Placidus, unless you request otherwise, during my readings, because I want to know you as an individual. Placidus was created when we started to discover, not all Libras were created the same. Not all Virgos are super clean and tidy. Some Sagittarians don't leave their house. What? To get to know the history of it, it was invented or created primarily during the 17th century, in the 1600s. And it is said that the system is named after Placidus de Titus. I hope I'm saying that right. He was an Italian monk, a mathematician, and astrologer. He didn't necessarily invent every underlying mathematical idea of Placidus from scratch, but he developed and popularized the system that eventually became named after him, Placidus de Titus. So in the 1600s, Placidus refined and popularized that method, using astrology to now understand the individual, not just using it from a larger. It was almost like you went from astrology was a Sagittarius thing, like we've been talking about, that Sag full moon, looking down at a whole forest. And then Placidus is, well, let's get in the trees. You're still seeing the same tree as you did from up above. You're still in the same forest that you saw from up above, but now you can look at the bark, and now you can dig and look at the roots, and now you can see what the leaves look like from under the canopy. That is your birth chart. Whole sign, you are in a drone or you're a bird flying, looking down at the big picture of it, and you can see it, and what you see is factual. But if you come down to earth and you walk inside the forest, you'll obviously bump into things you could have never seen or experienced from above. So again, they're the exact same thing. You're just having a different experience. So it's like, Whole sign was widely used in Hellenistic astrology in like the 7th century, 1st century to 7th century. And then the 1600s, Placidus popularizes his method. And then the 1800s to 1900s, Placidus was the dominant way to use astrology in Europe and in North America. And then 1990s, really, this is the history of it. Whole sign experienced a major revival in using it. So again, two languages can speak the same truth. So instead of dividing the zodiac into 12 equal sign-based houses, like whole sign does, Placidus divides the chart according to time and seasons. So the basic idea is, how long does it take a point in the sky to move from the horizon, right? So that would be the eastern horizon, your ascendant, to the midheaven, due north, top of your chart, and then continue through the sky, going around clockwise. So Placidus literally measures portions of the motion of Earth. That's why it's called the quadrant house system, right? Quadrant, quad, 4 seasons. There you go. What's interesting is while whole sign is older than Placidus by almost 2,000 years, Placidus was used for just as much time as the most popular astrology modality. And so it isn't an argument of which one is better, which one should you use. It's like two ancient methods merging in a bottleneck, finally meeting each other at the same time. So I just want to end the debate by saying there is no right, there is no wrong. There's simply two different languages speaking the same truth. So in my personal experience, Placidus, 9 out of 10 times, is the one most people resonate with when it comes down to who am I as a person. Whole sign really resonates with people when a natal planet is getting transited and when it comes to forecasting things. I think the biggest mistake beginners to astrology make is obsessing over which chart or which house system is right before you've mastered the memorization of what each planet means, the signs, sometimes the aspects and the transits. Because, again, I'm just going to keep saying that. Two languages speak the same truth. I would love to use my chart as an example. I've got a stellium in Scorpio in the 6th house. It's my moon, my Venus, my Pluto. And that 6th house, Scorpio stellium, I am learning to stop putting other people's needs above my own. I'm really learning self-care days and saying no. Hyper-obsessing over caretaking and the health of my loved ones and my animals and children and pets. Huge thing I'm learning. But when I open my chart and whole sign, that stellium jumps up into the 7th house of one-on-one relationships and partnerships. Same truth. I was consistently learning in my 20s, especially when I was married, to stop putting people before me, to stop letting people decide what I do for a living. I mean, you guys know my story if you've been around here long enough. I got the college degree. I got engaged right out of college. I got the corporate job. And then I got a diagnosis of autoimmune disease and hit rock bottom, truly, and had to look at my life and go, oh my gosh, everyone around me must think I look so good on paper, but I'm miserable. I'm so miserable that my body is attacking itself. So I had to get a divorce. I had to leave the corporate job out of the blue. I had to just completely unlearn the good girl, right? And so it's, of course, through relationships. That's where that 7th house pops in. So the core story of my chart is not changing. I have deep loyalty, intense emotional bonds, powerful relationship, transformations, and learning healthy boundaries. That remains true whether I use Placidus or whole sign for my chart. But in Placidus, the lesson tends to show up through service, work, being needed, caretaking. My question becomes, why do I feel responsible for everyone? Why am I always the responsible one? And that could look like showing up for clients, my pets, family members, partners, or anyone who needs help. But now in whole sign, when that stellium swaps into the 7th house for me, Now that Scorpio stellium is activating partnership. So then the question goes, why do I lose myself in being over responsible and caretaking in relationships? In my past, in my 20s, I got married to someone who suffered from addiction. And being a person who has thankfully never struggled with that, I was never big on drinking alcohol, never cared for smoking weed, of course, tried everything, but it was just never something I enjoyed doing. Miss Perfect, Miss Sober, Miss 4.0 in college and volunteering every weekend with the elderly, found herself getting married to someone who suffered from a pretty bad addiction to drugs. How do we land in that, right? It showed me through literally getting married, taking on that person's last name, but also caretaking for them and feeling the emotional and visible weight of holding that relationship up. You know, when you're young, you don't fully understand how significant addiction is. Neither one of us did. So that focus shift to my romantic partner, my marriage, attachment, power dynamics. Same lesson showing up in different ways. So my chart reflects both, right? So when you look at a chart through that, I'm not looking at it saying it's either 6th house or 7th house. I have to pick one. That's not true. The deeper Scorpio lesson for me is learning that love does not require self-sacrifice and constantly giving, overgiving, doing, being responsible, loving unconditionally, proving that I'll always stay, even when it's just not good. I'm learning that lesson intensely, right? So 2 languages, that's just my favorite quote throughout this, 2 languages speak the same truth. What I said earlier, my Sagittarius sun in Placidus squeezes by in the 7th house, which is really interesting because my mom and my grandmother all have their sun. She's an Aquarius sun, my grandma's a Leo sun, in their 7th house. But if you take all 3 of our charts and pop them into whole sign, all of our suns swap into the 8th house. Generational astrology is fascinating. I can't encourage you enough to study that one. So a Sagittarius sun in the 7th house could be said, I discover myself and my truth through other people, partnerships, clients, one-on-one interactions, being a guide, advisor, or counselor to others. But if you were to pop my Sagittarius sun into the 8th house, now the story becomes, I discover myself, I find my truth through transformation, healing trauma, intimacy, shared resources from partnerships, clients, one-on-one interactions. And so I think I always tell you guys this, that every season builds upon the last. Taurus season, slow and steady. Build something stable. Gemini season. Okay, now let's get back out there, discuss, debate, invite other people to talk about what we just built. Got it. Cancer season will be next. Okay, let's slow down how much we talk and make sure we actually feel in our bones what we've been talking about. And so, in whole sign versus Placidus, your sun or your Venus or your Mars will never swap completely across the chart. If you switch it into whole sign, my sun is never going to be in the 12th house. It's just, it's always going to be either below or above where it is in Placidus or whole sign. And each one builds upon the next, right? When people argue or debate over which house system is right or which one they should be using, same with Vedic. I get a lot of people like, why don't you use Vedic? It's more accurate than this and that. And I've tried. I just don't agree. It is what it is. Again, and it's not wrong. I love people who love their Vedic or their sidereal charts. I love it. I think it's so cool, differing opinions. It keeps life very colorful. But when they argue about house systems, I think they're arguing over which camera angle is correct, right? If you take a picture of a person, if you get a side profile on the left, you're seeing something different. If you get a side profile on the right, you're seeing this side of their face and their jaw and their nose. Versus if you get a completely different picture standing right in front of them, a mugshot, you're seeing something different. So you're capturing the same person, just different parts of their image. There you go. So really quickly, the main difference between them, whole sign is easier to explain. Astrology apps know, they know this, that it's incredibly straightforward. There's no cusps, intercepted signs, uneven houses, For an app trying to onboard millions of users, it's a huge advantage. It just makes sense to do that. Predictive techniques, horoscopes often work very cleanly in Whole Sign. That is what I use whenever I do your forecasting. I'll say, okay, let me look at a Gemini rising chart through Whole Sign. Yep, Jupiter's about to move into this house for them. It's a big picture. And that's why I try and encourage you guys to listen for your sun, your moon, and your rising, because I'm trying my best to take into account that your Placidus chart will have, depending on your rising sign degree, it'll be different for everyone. So that's where you always have to be consciously aware when you listen to forecasting. Does it resonate with you? If you ever hear me read you a horoscope for something and you think, that's a load of shit, like that's just not my life, don't give me the power to make you feel scared, to make you feel excited, to make you feel anything that your gut feeling doesn't resonate for you. Do not give me that power, because every single chart, I always try and explain this too. Like if you feel fuzzy, like I don't know what to feel about this, it resonates, but it kind of doesn't, then we probably need to talk and see your chart personally, because there are so many nuanced layers to it, and I would like to look at it through the Placidus lens rather than the big whole sign lens that I'm utilizing to talk to tens of thousands of you and give you horoscopes and forecasting from. The only nuance I would add to this is whenever I do this exercise with you guys one-on-one, and what the exercise is we'll read the definition of a planet in one house, and then we'll swap it to whole sign, and it'll change into another house, and we'll read a quick definition. In Joanna Martine Woolfolk's book, The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need, is our resource. And I'll ask, which one resonates more? Which one sounds more like you? Typically, people always say Placidus. Typically. However, when something is getting transited, like, let's see, with my Scorpio moon, and whole sign is in the 7th house, and Placidus is in the 6th. When Jupiter was on my Scorpio moon and my Venus, since they're the same degree, I got a divorce. I separated from my partner that I mentioned before. And while that was on, it looked like it was in my 6th house. That was a divorce. It's such a 7th house experience. And so in that moment, if you would have read the two definitions, well, the moon in the 6th house is this, but the moon in the 7th house is that. Going through a divorce, a big 7th house transit, I would have said, oh, whole sign all the way. That is so me. So I found as well that when natal placements like that, especially personal ones, personal planets and luminaries, get transited, whole sign resonates more. Placidus can answer the question, how do I experience these planets? Whole sign can answer the question, where is this energy being activated? So, guys, I'm going to end this there. I talked longer than I thought I would, but obviously very passionate about this, and I really hope I covered all the bases and the questions. Both of the pugs are snoring now. They are bored out of their mind. At the end of the day, astrology is not about proving that one thing is right. It's so frustrating when people are like, Democrat, Republican, whole sign, Placidus, chocolate vanilla. Like, guys, like, what? Astrology is about helping people understand themselves. And there are many roads that can lead to the same truth. We humans are such nuanced creatures, and we're always changing. We're always growing. I keep using the Rubik's Cube analogy. I feel like our entire chart is a Rubik's Cube, and each little placement, each planet within it is also a miniature Rubik's Cube. And they're constantly shifting, evolving, and changing, right? So at the end of the day, there is no right or wrong. I'm going to say it again. Here I go. Say it with me. Two languages can speak the same truth. Whether you read your chart through Placidus or whole sign, the sky hasn't changed. That minute that you were born on that day at that location has not changed. You're simply looking at the same story through a different lens. You're simply coming down from your tower in the sky, looking down at the forest of you and saying, let me go check out that tree. What's that vine growing around that one? What does the bark look like there? But the leaves are green from up here, but what if they're a different shade of green from below the canopy? That's it. That's it, right? The goal isn't to find the right system. It's to find the one that helps you understand the chart most clearly. If you're brand new, start with whole sign. It just makes it so much easier and less overwhelming. So go ahead, start with your whole sign. Once you have mastered and memorized what each planet means, what each sign means, and maybe even what each house means, if you can recite it, if I were to ask, then go ahead and twist your chart into Placidus. Don't bite off more than you could chew, okay? And if you need help with the memorization of these things, you know we have flashcards for that, right? We partnered with the girls at Pure Astrology, and you can get 10% off their flashcard deck. I have them right here. Mine are old and worn. I should probably upgrade because I used them so much. It's a blast. Tap back into public school in the 90s to give yourself flashcard pop quizzes. Do it with friends. It's so fun and exciting, and you get to memorize all of them. And then bump it up to Placidus. So link to those flashcards, always at the website, always in the bio. Everything you need that's free, that's an investment, it's all right there for you. Thank you guys for listening to another episode. Happy Gemini season. I will see you next week. Sending love from Twin Moon Ranch outside of Austin, Texas. I'll see you then. Bye, guys.